the podcast the racing world has been waiting for. We're joined by the godfathers of new racing media, Glenn Pollett, Marc Lambourne from the Rand. Thank you for coming in, boys.
Hi, Rich. Hi. Always great to come and see Kings. G'day,
We've also got the King.
King is the king. Long
as
live the
well.
king.
So the point of this podcast is I want to put some life and colour to what the track was like in the 1990s, mostly the back end of the 1990s. I was out there, I think I started when I was about 18 out the track in about 1997. All of these guys were there and were quite significant players in different ways out there at that time. And there's been a lot of requests from people to get you guys on the couch. And people love being taken back and learning about what the track was like back in the day. A lot of people who watch our show weren't even alive in the period we're going to talk about. So it'll be fun. It'll be a good ride. To get things going, we have the advantage. We have an ABC documentary that was made in 1998, and it puts a lot of life and colour to the track back then. It follows three people. It follows Carlo La Rosa, big punter, who all you guys would know well. Follows Sean and Kingsley. Sean was bookmaking at the time. It also follows John Kennedy, bookmaker. And we're going to play just a couple of short clips during this podcast so people can understand what it looked like out there and what the mood and the tempo was. So let's start with this first clip. Trell will play it.
The betting ring has seen better days.
There's a young Marc Lambourne.
Punters offer the TAB and the local pubs. All
Ash
that's
Johnson.
left of the track are a handful of pros
Race hole.
and a
There's
few
Steve.
seasoned
There's
bookies
Steve.
brave enough to take them on. John Kennedy is one of a dying breed of big-time bookies who survived the daily war of nerves
Tony
on the
will
rails.
John.
On a typical race day, he can win or lose up to $100,000 or more.
To win 3,000?
Warren.
He tries to lure the punters his way by offering them better odds than the other bookies.
2,500 each way 7. I've got to try and find out by the way people are behaving and whatever, and just the body language, which horses they want to back. You might see the major players in the betting ring, as we say, on the blocks. They're toey. You might even look at the direction their eyes are pointing, at the top of the board or the bottom of the board, to see which horse they're watching. A lot of people that used to be sort of recreational punters don't really come anymore, and the turnover's fallen away. And a greater percentage of your turnover is from professional punters all the time. Like on the midweeks, probably 80-90% is from professional punters. And by definition, it's going to be pretty hard to beat those people. They know what they're doing. They're probably better at the form than we are.
John, give me 2,000 on 5.
2,000 on 5 for
All right, so that sets the scene well for us. So why don't we roll with what John Kennedy was saying at the end there, that when he was turning up in the late 1990s, he feels that it was basically just professional money out there. And it's interesting that he's sort of saying the game was gone. I got there at that era, and I think the game was still pretty strong there. There was good money to be made out of the track, and if you compare it to what the track is like now, it's vastly different. But maybe I might start with you, Glenn. And so when you're out at the track in the 1990s, which you still do these days, when you go to the track, you go there for one reason only, is to make money. But even more so back in this day because you were bookmaking, but you're also punting. And so how did you start bookmaking? Were you a punter first and then went to become a bookie?
Yeah, I was a punter for a long time first, which I was only a bookie for 18 months.
Yeah.
I've been out at the track 43 years.
Yeah.
So, I don't even recall much about being a bookie. It was just something I wanted to do and had to go, and I didn't really enjoy it because I like punting too much.
Yeah.
I like the idea of making moves, not being dictated to, I suppose, with are they going to back this, are they going to back that, and that sort of thing. So I don't think much of my life as being a bookie at all. I've always been just a punter.
Yeah, so it was a pretty short, sharp set because when I got to the track in 98, you'd stop bookmaking.
Right, yeah, that'd be right.
But it was fast and furious, Glenn's 18 months. It was
Yeah,
a ride.
so tell us, if you want to tell us a bit more about it, because I don't know anything about it. I mean, everyone, Glenn's a popular character. People would love to hear about what he was like as a bookie, and you can tell us too, Kings.
Well, he was fearless.
Yeah.
You go first, Mark.
Well, the the players out at the track, they'd seen these guys come and go all the time. You could be the greatest judge of all, but if you sort of hadn't had a go on the stand, it was like there was something missing. And so I think every big punter basically secretly harboured an urge to at least tick that box. And
Yeah,
so we had.
because you were a bookie as well too for a
Well,
period
I
of
was a
time,
bookie
Mark.
before you and after you. It was, and I stood up next to.
Well, we've all
Sean
had
at
a lick of the ice cream for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
But I mean, I found it really. I really enjoyed bookmaking, but at the same time, what Glenn referred to there about making your own moves, you just can't make your own moves. You're actually sitting there, like a stunned mullet, really.
Yeah.
You're a victim
Yes.
of clever punters.
Yes.
So you're not master of your own destiny. Yes, it's great to walk away from a race and go, well, I hated that horse and I've won, I've got the lot. But that happened far
Rarely.
too infrequently.
Rarely.
And basically you're just not master of your own destiny. And it's a game of egos, and bookmaking is better suited to those sort of quieter achievers that maybe don't see themselves as form students, but more as head players. And we've seen some of the longest running bookies have been those guys that have been able to play the heads
So
over a long period of time.
who were the most in that era? Who were the most successful bookies, and would you consider them head players? So obviously Bill Hurley. Bill Hurley
Jeff
was
Pendlebury.
a huge bookie back then.
But
Jeff-
it's
Jeff
stood the
Pendlebury.
test of time. Who
Stood the
who's
test of
just
time,
a head
Jeff.
player, for
Yep.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's because they've always mentioned interstate bookies, but interstate bookies seem to have a bit of an edge, didn't they, Glenn? They're just betting the telly.
Back then, that was almost a license to print. Like, I don't think you can really call the interstate bookies. Sure, they took bets, but they just took bets.
Yeah.
But the difference with the bookies in the 90s to now is the majority of them had an opinion.
Yeah.
Like Marc and Glenn both had strong opinions. They were punting bookmakers. They took sets against horses based on form a lot. Some of the head players did survive, but it was the big difference in the 90s. Everyone had an opinion, didn't they? And that was the real beauty of it.
Yeah.
Was that people stood by their convictions in a way.
Yeah. Yeah. And did you sort of get going the most when you were booking? Like, did you have your biggest run
No.
as a bookie? You had a bigger run as a punter.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, with me booking, the reason that I didn't like it and B, I probably wasn't successful at it is because I never stopped punting.
Yes.
I'd be on the stand and sure, I'd lay 6,000 or 4,000 to Sean or Kingsley or to win
Tell
20
the
or
Golden
whatever.
Slipper story,
But
will you, Glenn?
what was that?
You've got to tell the Golden Slipper story.
Well, the Golden Slipper story was like, I was very quickly promoted to the rails, like
Yes.
within like 9 months. It's a Golden Slipper, and they had me in the rail spot, and you wouldn't believe they actually gave me an agency somewhere to bet on the Golden Slipper. No one wanted to bet in the Golden Slipper, so I said, I'll put some staff out there. So I said, here, boys, blah, 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 here's the money. Just write any bet, but you are not to lay flying spur. Just don't lay flying spur. And anyway, so, start betting on the race and blah, and it gets out to 16s. Now everyone's 20s. I'm thinking, geez, I think it's got a good chance and blah. And then all of a sudden, two boards went 25s late. It was Johnny Lau and John Kennedy, and Billy, who was working for me on the ground. I had a massive book. I was holding 80,000 or something, and I'm not laying flying spur. And I just said to Billy, go have 1,000 each way with both those bookies at 25s, and the races out. Like, they're about to jump, bang, bet, bang. And I'll never forget Johnny Lau coming after me after the race and going, why you do that to me? Why you do that to me? And I want a shitload, but I tipped to win.
So they both beat you 25 for one each way?
Yeah, and
Yeah,
accommodated
that's good
me
betting.
back in a time where there's probably still a winner for them.
Yeah.
But there was just the size of the game. All the money was on course. It was just a different beast.
Yeah.
And now, of course, it's it's what it is.
Yes.
It's sad.
But
in a
through
way.
that period, you could see the pro punters that were running around, and obviously Glenn was one of the biggest of them. But I mean, there were a number of them. So Spike from that era was
Spike was huge.
he was front and center as well. But you could see these punters basically coming up on the run with these edges. There was a cognoscenti of players at the track, and they're all discussing what's going on and what were the ingredients that basically gave you an edge. So you'd see these waves of edges where these players, Glenn, Spike, Steve Collar, Dr. Nick, they were playing these sort of constructs and milking them until they were no good, and then coming up with another idea. It was so dynamic.
So
And it was because of the setup. It was because you had these young, dynamic guys that wanted to win, but also were putting their mind to playing.
Do you think they were using computers, or they were still doing a manual
no,
assessment?
that was crayons and cardboard, Richie.
Really?
Yeah, it was crayons and cardboard.
It was dead set. It was all anecdotal too. You know, you just basically thought up these things on the run. And, I remember Steve Collar was getting the AIMA Racing Weeklies and going, he was looking at the spread of margins in the field and going, well, that's a hot race. Have a look at the spread of margins.
Yeah.
I'm backing everything out of that race when they run. So, they were just little ideas. They're pearls, really.
Pearls, yeah.
But these guys were betting these pearls until they dried up and everyone was doing it. And
The
they moved
edge
on to the next.
I just wanted to jump in there and talk about Steve Keller because he is without doubt, in my life, the greatest I've ever seen by a million miles. I mean, Kings and Ray Hopkins are right up there as the greatest gamblers I've ever seen. But when it comes to a genius of form, Steve was just...
And he bet on everything, didn't he?
Well, he
was
bet
in
on,
the-
he
into the
bet on
interstate
9
and he
meetings
was-
in a day.
Yeah,
And he know
he
the
was the
run of
best.
every last start horse.
Yeah.
But
Pulling
I
his
just-
hair.
I just-
and,
How did his hair stay in? Like, he's still got a good head of hair. And he used to
He's-
pull it
He's
constantly.
spitballed now.
He's
Is he?
the,
Okay.
he's the greatest man I've ever met. The
he still
greatest
punting?
brain.
Yeah.
Lost a bit of contact with Steve. He's like everyone's just headed home to their offices and gone separate ways. But I just wanted to tell you a really great story. Just quickly, can I
Yeah,
just
no,
jump
as many
in?
as you want. Go for it.
So Eric Conlon, a doyen of our game, a
Yes.
doyen of bookmaking. He was out there nearly 50 years bookmaking, and I've got a couple of other Eric Conlon stories for later, which I know you'll love. But one of the best stories I ever remember about Steve Keller was I did a lot of business with Eric Conlon, a lot of betting, massive amounts of betting, and a new bookie, a big Goliath of a man called, of all names, Robbie Williams. You remember Rob
I do
Williams?
remember him,
Yeah. He came up to Eric after the last and he said to Eric, it's the best story ever. He goes, oh, there's this bloke. He's an Italian boy, Steve Keller something. And Eric goes, oh, yes, I know Italian Steve. And he goes, yes, he wanted to bet credit with me. He said he bets with you, Eric. I was just saying, is he all right? And Eric said, oh, yeah, no, he'd be fine. You let him on for sure. And he goes, and Robbie said to Eric, so he's always paid? And Eric said, oh, no, he's never paid. And then Eric goes, Robbie says, what do you mean, he doesn't pay? Oh, no, he'll pay, but he's just never paid me. And Robbie said to Eric, how long has he been betting with you? About 3.5 years.
Welcome to first grade, Robbie.
Welcome to first grade.
Wasn't he marvel though, Eric Conlon as well? I remember
Best
going
ever.
as a kid to the track at Rose Hill when I was about 13, 14, 15 and just being mesmerised by how many tickets, how quick he could write the tickets. I just used to stand there and watch.
Yeah.
That was my first introduction to the betting ring really in Sydney. It was amazing.
I remember
Packed
Eric
10
Conlon.
deep just writing
so
tickets.
I'd be 18 or 19, and all of you blokes should be hanging around Eric's stand because he's always betting each way. And then it'd be, say, 9 runners, maybe an odds-on chance, and occasionally he might bet each way when he shouldn't, but you guys would be standing around. Then you'd be watching him when he starts to put his board up. Then he'd lean down, pick the win-only sign up, stick it over the each way, and you guys would be like, boo, boo.
He said, I was
And he's still in good health, Eric? I mean,
He's still alive.
Yeah.
I ask about him occasionally, and I believe he's just doing what he does. He's got a little farm or something, chips away.
Yeah.
Just quickly, I was casting about 86, 87, and I had to go to Gosford, get some money and do anything, and I decided I'll hitch because back in those days, you got to understand, there's 1,000 cars would go past you going to the races. So I jump out of a train at Hornsby, I put my finger out. This cart's pulls over. Eric Conlon in this beaten up old Ford with his bookie bags in the back, but you'll love this. I jumped in and sat next to him. I said, oh, hello, Mr. Conlon. He said, oh, I've seen you, young fellow, at the track. What's your name? And I said, oh, my name's Glenn. And, he goes, all right. And we drive to Gosford with 3 bales of hay on the back seat and all the windows down. And he's just driving along, and all this hay and all this lucerne and whatever in my nose. And I'm going, how good is racing?
yeah. But why did he have hay?
Because he used to feed horses on his property in Pig, and he bought the hay, but he was on the rails at Gosford. This is Eric on the rails at Gosford, and he picked me up. Anyway, the byproduct of the story is from that point on, from 86 to, say, goodness knows, whenever, 2010, I formed a good relationship with him, and plenty of times drove him mad because I was short for a while, and plenty of times he probably said, oh, can I hold you? And a lot. But he'd bet me to win, say, 10,000 each way on a horse, maybe 3 different times in a race, and every bet for 25 years went down to HH. It went down to Hitchhiker.
There you go. And he's betting Y and netting.
what a legend.
And you touched on it before. He was amazing at writing the tickets out. I remember there was an awful stink when they told him he had to move to a computer because
It was awful. He hated it.
Yeah.
And if he didn't want to lay one, he just... I didn't hear you. I didn't hear you.
Yeah.
You got to talk to me. But the best part about that story is the fact that Eric has paid Steve week in, week out. Like Steve's badly paid him, and the bookie doesn't care about that.
Yeah.
No.
Right?
Well, you always say it
That's
here
a
on the
fundamental
radio.
difference.
And also with the HH, you put it down to H, and now with all the forms, and you know, you win 2,000, they want to ring the coppers and drive you mad out of paying you.
Yeah.
Back in those days, put it down to HH. He knew who HH was.
It was about making a book, though, wasn't it, Mark?
Well, but you also got intel from winning punters. If you didn't play winning punters, they wouldn't help. That wouldn't help you.
Eric once said to me, "I don't care who wins as long as I win," and I think that's a beautiful.
Bill
beautiful-
Murphy was the same in the modern era.
Yep. Great men.
Just getting back to Glenn's bookmaking, when I was working for Sean doing the ground, Glenn used to go up first in the hour. He'd put up 105%.
Wow.
And I went up to him one time, number 2 to win 20,000. It was $7. I can bet you, but I can't bet you the fraction. Turned it into 650, 11 to 2.
Yeah.
So that's what it was like then. The percentages were very low.
$7.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. And did you guys, you and Sean and you, did you go pretty hard at it when you were booking? There's a lot of, who was your
Looking
biggest
back-
betting jewel? Do you
looking-
remember? Or when you were a
Bob
bookie?
Ingham. Bob Ingham was
Bob
mine.
Ingham. Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
I used to bid him. Unfortunately, I used to lay octagonal to him all the time, and then I'd aim up and say, "I thought you had more money than that, Bob," and really give him the shits.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But that's just
What was a big bet
different
back
times.
then, though, for Bob sort of thing?
To win 50.
Yeah.
Yeah, to win 50.
Good bet.
Yeah. And then I had betting duels with Ray Hopkins, another, like, probably the greatest man that ever walked on a race course to me. It's, you know, and it's funny because Ray would settle, a check would come on Tuesday, he'd post it on Monday, or vice versa. I'd post him a check on Monday. We'd settle weekly. And he used to write me beautiful letters about where he thought I went wrong on this race,
Wow.
and handwritten letters, which
wow.
at the time I thought, that's very nice. And then I'd put them in the bin, and now I've just filthy on
geez.
myself.
Which
I
you
never,
kept them.
because I throw everything out. I'm a real chucker, unfortunately. And but they were beautiful handwritten. Now, Glenn, that time when you went up 6s in race 5 at Canterbury, I really felt like, you know, you should have, and trying to teach me almost.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he saw you as a protege. And that was another big thing about the track. I mean, I was adopted by Peter Todd.
Yes.
1987, we're going up to, I'm working for a little bookie called Steve Garner, who happens to be friends with Peter, and so Peter came along to sort of watch. And I met Peter at that time, and I was just a keen form student. I was like not interested in uni. I was clerking as, you know, a dozen times a week. And Peter just saw me and said, "Look, I'm looking for someone to do some markets for me because I'm starting to put the prices up first in Sydney." Yeah. And I didn't have any skills. He just plucked me out and said, "I'm going to teach you and pay you at the same time." It was the most fortuitous thing that ever happened to me. 1987, coming back from Newcastle Carnival, I'm going,
And how old were you then? Like early 20s or something?
yeah.
Because he was a
20,
huge
22.
bookmaker too, Peter Todd, in the middle of
He
the
was,
rails.
was he? Yeah.
Huge bookmaker.
Yeah, I remember him going up first. Very competitive pricing as well, 110% probably.
Yeah, well, so his idea, and I was, you know, I was basically feeding him. We were both doing markets together and trying to blend them, and then putting up as competitive a market as possible to get, because you only had 30 minutes of betting, so you had to get the thing going.
Yeah.
Like we've seen betting rings, you know, in the old days. Obviously, it's different now, but betting rings where you only had 30 minutes to bet, and the bookies would put up 150, and you just sit around and snooze for 20 minutes, and it doesn't help the marketplace.
Yes.
So his idea was, let's get the marketplace going. Let's flush out, you know, what people want to back.
Because there's no pre-post back then, obviously.
No
No, and it was
pre-post.
exciting that when the first market sort of came out, it was exciting. Everyone was sort of standing around
not
waiting.
Even Mark Reed was doing markets. It was that
And
was
no
it, right?
Betfair.
No.
No.
So no Betfair, no pre.
Would there be doubles markets you get a bit of a guide from?
Yeah, so
They
Stewie,
were, but they were small things.
but I mean, yeah, so initially the doubles were a thing in the 70s, and then for some reason those licenses vanished. And
They
then
probably got stripped,
They
right?
were, well, maybe the doubles bookies just folded. Yeah. But anyway, in the late 80s, the AJC decided to offer some doubles licenses again, and Max Shelton and Stuart Davidson applied. Well, were the successful applicants, and I think Stu wasn't even of age at that stage.
Oh,
But-
no, he
so-
would have been.
So you did have the advantage of a little bit of activity through the doubles markets, giving you a bit of an insight. But, you know, proper players wouldn't show their hand there. Why would you give your edge away when you've got 20 bookies along the rails that you can get on to win 5 with each of them?
Oh yeah, that was the NBL at the time, but they'd often bet you to win more than 5.
Yeah.
Often, you know. Barry Murray bet you to win 10 each way just like the minute he went up. And he would feel like he was ungentlemanly not to. A great man.
So to move it along a bit, the next clip I'm going to play is some footage of you and Sean arriving at the races for the day and just a little bit of action of you guys during the day. And what I would like you to talk about is what you guys were up to back then. What was your approach? How did it go? And then I guess eventually, why did you move away from booking and just stick to punting? So you got it going. Ready, Mitch? Here it is. There he is, the king.
It would have been 18 or 19 then.
Ron Krogan.
I've got another great Ronnie Krogan story up. That is early.
It was before the first.
The success rate, say, to be still going in 2 years, would probably be 10%. 90% fail in the first 2 years. John Kennedy.
Just run me through what horse spun up. And then just look along for the best after that.
5,000.
Before he then with the binoculars, he passed away, didn't he?
Indeed, Aaron Bird.
10 and 9
Yeah,
a fail, betting top prices. 10 and 9 a fail. Have a whole lot back.
There's the king. Different haircut, king.
Pushing face.
Jimmy Ramos.
Yeah. Nick Thomas, yeah.
Okay, 11-8 Union Wells. There it is, 11-8.
Okay, so it gives a bit of a sense of what was going on then. And just for a bit of context, the reason the ABC were following Sean is because he just got his license back for the second time.
Yep.
And so this is when earlier in the episode, it shows him at the Bookies Cup getting his license. You're out at the track, away you go. And you guys were quite contrarian, and I'm sure you both will agree. Like, these boys came along and shook things up a bit, didn't they? They were...
Oh, did they what?
Yeah.
They came along, and to be kind, I mean, I just thought they were complete fucking idiots.
Yeah, yeah.
They were young and they were clean cut. I mean, look at Sean. He looks like a fucking male model.
Yeah.
And there's the king eating a cucumber sandwich. I thought they're going to last 5 minutes. That's what
Yeah,
I thought.
yeah.
Then I got to build a relationship with both of them. I thought, oh, they're nice boys. I'm going to say they like betting. That's, they kept ticking boxes for me.
Yeah.
And then, of course, they haven't stopped ticking boxes the whole way through. They're both so successful, right? Like incredibly.
Yeah.
But at the time, what did I think? I thought they were just like,
Yeah, bank clerks. Yeah,
I thought they were going to be there 5 minutes.
And that's what John Kennedy says. He says that only 10% of bookies are still around after 2 years. Yeah. But what was your first thoughts on the boys? when you first ran in?
They looked incredibly mild-mannered, but you didn't realise that underneath that mild manner was just burning ambition.
Yeah.
It took a while to manifest itself.
It was funny because they were on the outer and they were betting each way at the time. I don't think they quite judged that the each way was mathematically wrong. I don't think they did. And they were 33s each way something. And I remember thinking, the way the map was, this has to trip to miss a place. Anyway, I remember I said to Sean, can I have 20 to 600 each way? And he said, Glenn, I'll bet you half, and 10 to 300 each way. And then it ran a place, and they must have laid the winner, and next thing it's taken out 2,800 of the place.
Sounds like a stink.
Yeah, and I come back there, there's like kings waddling along behind Sean, and there's Sean, and they're just both scratching their head. They're going, I didn't think they could win, but Glenn really fucked us there, the place. And it was
Used
just
to
like,
make a lot of roughies in the place.
yeah, and I just thought, how can they last? But, they were just different times. They're a bit sad to look at, actually, for me.
It is. But what was the approach, Kings? Like, so when you... Okay, so the first time you were bookies, you guys made quite a bit of money, right? It was Sean's license. And
Yeah,
obviously
so I was just
helping him.
working. I was young. I was 18, 19, just learning.
Helping
so-
him out. So it was all
Yeah.
Sean's go, but
Correct.
he used you to try and help him. You worked for him. Obviously, you were his number one staff member.
Yeah, my job was on the ground, which back then was looking at, there's no internet, obviously, so I was just looking in the ring at what everybody else was doing and relaying that information to Sean. Handling the phones as well, so I think phone betting came in the mid-90s. No phones were allowed on track, mobile phones to use previous to that, so we'd have a few clients on the phone. Marc Reed would ring from IAS or a few big punters, and I'd handle them on the phones. But my main job was relaying the information back to Sean, what was happening in the ring. which was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It was great fun.
Yeah,
Because there was so much happening.
You're on the ground hanging with all of us and talking and what are you doing, Glenn? What, just all chit-chatting.
Learning, really.
You know,
This
watching,
is
different teams in those days, like Guy and Frank were working for Ross Evans. I mean, the big syndicates were on course.
Yes.
Yes.
Now
Ross
the big
was
syndicates are, in the Isle of Man.
Did Jelko have a presence on course back then, do you think?
He came, he had a brown Porsche and he turned up, but he stayed in the commission room, tote betting only, and never came out to have a fixed odds bet that I even remember.
Yeah.
So Ross had run out. Ross Evans was big back then. Guy Burnham was working for him, and he'd put a lot through the betting ring.
Yep.
But getting back to Sean, Aaron Burke was doing the form for him back then. So as I said before, everyone had an opinion. Sean had an opinion. He was a real opinion bookmaker.
Yeah.
Brilliant at figures.
Yes.
As well. So he would know when to use the form and just use the sort of mathematics as well and put it all together. But big gambler.
Yeah, and he didn't give a fuck, He just
Fearless.
bet big and hard.
Fearless, yeah.
Fearless.
Yeah. No, fearless.
I remember we both stood up at a maiden at Hawkesbury, both next to each other in a maiden, both booking, and I wanted to back Wally and he wanted to back Billy.
Last race.
No, it was first race. This was first race. And I said, to win 50, Billy. And he said, yeah, to win 50. And he said, to win 50 with you, Wally. And I went, yeah. Because I couldn't say no after I didn't really want to bet him to win 50, but he just bet me to win 50.
And
just different times.
Did Billy or Wally win?
I can't remember.
Yeah,
now.
but just-
It's all a blur.
And it didn't matter.
It's all a blur. But I know I had one was a real bad loser and one was a real big winner.
Yeah.
That's what it was like.
Yeah.
It was just different. Whereas now it's, you got corporates worth billions of dollars won't bet blokes to win two.
Yeah.
Just a different
Michael
beast.
Cook was betting big back then
Yeah,
too.
he was a big player in the
Michael
ring,
Cook
wasn't
was
he?
a
Mark
big-
Sheen was another player in the ring back then.
Michael Cook was a big player.
Yep.
Yeah, he was absolute. Like when I arrived on the course, he had a bit of awe about him. He was sort of like, when he came in the ring, it's like, oh, Cookie's in the ring, what's he doing? That kind of thing. So
It's funny, he still talks about the story of when he was 14 or 15, Michael, and he was coming home from Gosford and he needed to live, so he just jumped in the old Glensters Ford. And he was just this tiny little kid, and I was like 22 or something, and I had like 20 or 30,000 just in the centre console. And I just threw it all in the back and I said, just sort that into tens for me, kid. And he bundled it all together for me. And he would have got such a thrill out of it. But and now, he's a giant successful man.
Yeah.
There's the old Glenster still cast, but
Still-
breathing.
yeah,
Still betting.
yeah.
Still betting, still breathing, and the race isn't over.
When I gave you a lift home, I reckon 25 years ago from Gosford one day, and we were just cruising along the freeway, we're having a good old chat as usual, and you looked at me and you said, I'm going to tell you one thing, Richie Rich. In 20 years from now, you'll be the head of you'll be the CEO of a big multinational company, but the old Glenster, he'll still be going out in the races. So do you think it's turned out true? Would you consider this role that I'm in now, the head of a multinational company?
Well, just cheering you to be successful, and this is like being in a company, I suppose. Yeah. And I am still at the track, which is kind of sad. I don't look at it as a badge of honour. I look at it as a badge of foolishness. Mm-hmm. But I do like going. I love watching the horses parade. It's my main love in life. And being with Racing Rant, that's the main part of my job, as long as the shows we do is but relaying information from the parade.
Well, we had such an amazing time growing up through that era that it's a real honour to be able to share some of those stories and to bring some of that colour to the racing community now, because it was you could shows like this were very rare. You just didn't get an insight. And journalists would write stuff, but the journalists didn't really know what was going on. You know, they were observing and they were reporting as best they could, but they weren't within. And so you didn't get these tales back then that you're getting now, because obviously now we're able to tell our own stories.
Yeah. And sort of finish off your stuff, Kings, what do you think was the reason that Sean ultimately didn't make it as a bookie and went on to be a successful punter, and yourself too? Like you've been a successful punter.
I think it's hard to do both. I think you're either a punter or you're a bookie.
Yeah.
I think I've never bookmaked myself. I only worked for bookies, but I wouldn't make a good bookmaker because I'm too opinionated. I find it hard to say no as well. I like being in control.
Yeah.
I can't beat bookmakers a lot of the time if they're in control either. So I like to be in control of what I'm doing. If somebody's picking and choosing what I'm doing, I don't win. But if I can pick and choose what I'm doing, I do win. So I think it's hard to do both, and your exposure is too big as well. It's just you need to sort of keep it.
You need to be a real businessman. And I think we're just not that.
Doesn't suit my personality, that's for
I mean,
sure.
imagine me, doesn't suit my personality.
You could say that about Ray as well, because I mean, both of us held Ray Hopkins in incredible esteem. I worked for Ray for a while, stood on his stand, but he was never a bookie for very long.
No, he was always a punter.
He was
He
cut
has
out
punter
to be
mentality,
a punter.
doesn't he?
Yeah.
Who are the bookies that you guys respect the most over the years in terms of being the crafted book? I mean, you don't have to necessarily like them as a person, but you respect them the most for their bookmaking ability. Have a think about that.
Well, I suppose, there's quite a few of them that I respect about the same thing. There's not one that I think's like a god.
Yeah.
Like I think of Ray, Jeff Pendlebury, Billy Murphy,
Eric
for sure. I mean, Eric was cast most of his life. He always had a few blokes in the joint with him.
Yeah.
And they were hard. The couple that I won't even mention their names, and one of them's now dead, but they were hard and tough blokes. I mean, really hard and tough blokes. I remember I owed Eric 18,000 one Wednesday, and one of his clerks, and anyway, he's dead now, Dave Johnson. He actually bailiffed me in the car park before the first. I wasn't even in the track and he was asking me for the 18. I said, Dave, for Christ's sake, give me a chance to get in the track. And said, I've got to pick some money up off other people.
Yeah, to try and pay.
It was just like, he was like sweating bullets.
Yeah.
But that was Dave's personality. Yeah. I'll tell you a funny story about Dave. Have I got a second to say?
Go as long as you want.
Dave unfortunately died in probably his early 50s. And he took his own life, which is sad because as it turned out, he must have been a very lonely person. He was, how can I put it kindly, because he's dead. He was hard to like in real life.
Yes.
But he was a racer. He was another part of our thing. And
everyone was welcome, you see. That was the thing.
Yeah. He just
There's so many different personalities as well.
Dave was a bit like Telstra, like with Telstra, all you ever hear is, oh, fucking Telstra. And it was a bit the same with Dave. Oh, fucking Dave, But, he was still part... He was certainly part of the, whatever the word was, all
community.
The different yeah. And didn't know he had any problems. He always seemed to have lots of money. And but he bailiffed me on and off for 20 years. Have you got that settling? You got to pay Eric today. Blah, blah. Yes, I'm a bit short. Oh, my God. Stressed and worried about money and blah, blah, his whole life. And I was walking out of Randwick one day. It would have been a Wednesday. I was cast. I was so gone. I was just dragging my feet along. I was walking past the old commission room, and there's a toilet in the middle there. And Dave walked out of the toilet, and he said, Glenn, you look awful. Are you okay? And I'm going, oh, fucking Dave, have a look at me. He said, take 200. This might help you. And he gave me $200, and he walked off. And when he walked off, my brain said, oh, Dave's going to kill himself.
Wow.
And he was dead by Saturday.
Wow.
Isn't that a weird story? And I fucking knew he was off because he would not give me 200 to get home. That's not who he was. And I remember I made a promise myself to put the 200 in a salvos bin, and I never did because I'm just a fucking low thing. But I never paid him back, obviously. And he wasn't really a friend, but he was certainly part of it.
It was very sad, though, wasn't it?
It's very sad. But I knew he was off.
Yeah.
But I couldn't do anything about it. But he lent me, he said, he's 200 to get home. He did not ever do that. It was a weird part of my life, that. Because I felt like I should have said something.
He bookmaked in his own right. I'm not sure if it was in the 90s, but
Yeah, he did. He
must
did.
have been.
Yeah, he was over the back there.
And the
isn't he?
trots
Yes.
and over the bag.
Yeah, he loved it.
He loved it. But he, for some reason...
Mark Reed was big back in the 90s in the Sydney
Absolutely.
betting ring as well. I think he started IAS 95, 96, but that first 5 years he was huge.
He did come and go a bit.
People are captivated by him, though.
Well, he's the ultimate showman.
Yeah.
But there was a lot of front there with Marc Reed.
Yeah.
I think that the pro punters definitely loved having him there.
Absolutely.
Whereas, there were other tradesmen, like I had a lot of time for
Dynamic
Phil
man.
Mance.
Dynamic man.
Did you have some good tussles with him, Glenn?
Not really. I didn't really partake. I stood next to him on the rails. He was in the stand next to me. But he was like almost looking at me like, "What are you doing here, you kid?" And I drive a Bentley to the track, and you're still in a beaten up old Ford, which I've always driven a beaten up.
Have you ever had any other brand other than a Ford?
Beaten up Fords
The whole time.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And I think it goes back to hitchhiking with Eric picking me up with the hay in the back seat in a Ford. It just, to me, they were bookies or punters' cars because you can crash into anything. Even now,
Frank Jones always drove a Ford.
crash into everything. I don't worry about it.
So one thing that I liked in this doco was John Kennedy talking about losses, taking losses, and there's also a little bit of a clip when Sean talks about taking losses. And I want us to talk about, you guys would have been through thousands and thousands of photo finishes, and how do you handle losses and how do you just keep getting up each day and betting. I think people will find it interesting if we talk about that. But we'll quickly watch this clip, and just to set the scene, what has happened is in a particular race, John Kennedy had a good result, and then there's a protest. Ray Murray, he is the chief steward at the time. There's a protest interference in the first 50 metres of the race.
Oh, what a beauty, right?
And we'll see what happens. We won't see John Kennedy say it. He says there's no way they'll uphold this. So we'll throw to the footage, see his response, and then we'll have a bit of a chat.
Costume was at least in the order of 1.5 lengths. The margin's a long neck. We've got no hesitation in agreeing with your objection. The placings now will be amended. 3 dual photon first. The 9 take a flight second. All right, thank you.
I reversed it. That's it. No problem. Next case.
Next race. Next race.
It was a surprising decision, but
Well, you can see how much it stings.
they're running it. So
He stings.
it's over now.
Stings, yeah.
It's hurting.
It's all
It's hurting.
gone, so
sure.
that's it.
Oh well, it's the game. You can't take it. Get out of it.
That's right.
That's a great point.
You got to be able to take it.
Gee, I missed the litter on the course.
Yeah.
So this is Sean and Kingsley getting script. Or
Words,
Sean
words,
getting
words.
script.
It doesn't stop.
How's the cucumber, King?
Just can't seem to win at the moment. Only favourites we stand are the ones that fucking win.
Yeah,
So I'll throw to you, Kings, just to start. So the feeling that Sean's experiencing then, and you would be to agree, you've gone through that hundreds and even thousands of
Yeah.
times, you know.
Still am.
Yeah, it never finishes. And what is it about? What do you do each morning to get up and just keep on pushing
Well, you
ahead?
just look forward. You can never look backwards. What do I bet on the next race? And that gets my mind off it. I find something else to focus on to take me off it, to not look back and dwell on the past. Or you've got to be positive. And that, from a punting perspective or any gambling perspective, the mental battle is the hardest. I've seen so many people who are a lot more talented than me and a lot better at the form than what I could ever be at, but they just can't handle the mental battle of the punt, the head fuck that it is.
Yeah.
Day after day after day. But you've got to be positive. You also got to look back at your past results and not just focus on the losses. Look back at the wins and when you were lucky and keep some perspective on it, really. It's too easy to go down that rabbit hole of how unlucky am I all the time.
Yeah, it's a real rabbit hole. I agree, and that's something I certainly fail at. I dwell too much, and to my detriment.
Yes.
But the best thing is you've got another race just around the corner. I mean,
Yeah.
you really can look forward.
There's never a last race, is
Well, I
there?
mean, I don't understand what the real world does on a Saturday afternoon. What do blokes do? Do they go to the IKEA with their filthy missus and try and act like they're enjoying themselves? Like, what do you fucking do on a Saturday afternoon?
If you don't bet.
The key is
If
to
you're not
stay in the
betting.
game, isn't it, really? So you
key is
can do
to-
that, so you
yeah.
don't have to go to IKEA.
My friend, someone said to me, "If you don't win, you lose." And I thought, well, you're a kid, and you're so right.
Yeah.
Best saying of all time.
Yeah.
If you're not a winner, you're a loser.
Do you have anything to add to that, Marc?
Yeah, well, look, I remember lots of times, I experienced this a lot at Wyong. Also, I seem to have worse results at Wyong than other places, but I just wander off going, am I cut out for this? Is this, am I not smart enough for this game? Because as a bookie, especially, you tended to just get, you were more of it was easier to see yourself as a victim, put it that way. As a punter, you're making the decisions that you make, whereas as a bookie, you just tended to, obviously the punters were making the decisions and you were hoping they were making the wrong decisions. But there was a lot of second guessing after the bad results. Like I'd go off crying and then Peter would say something like, "Oh, you didn't like that winner, eh?" And I'm going, "Fuck off."
Yeah.
It's really hard to take those results, but of course, 10 minutes later again, there's another race.
Do you think you're better at handling bad runs and losses these days than you were?
No. It's all. There's so much ego involved in this game that if you're going badly, you take it badly,
Yeah.
and that's what gets you in the first place. But yeah, it's so easy to feel stupid, and obviously, that's what losing makes you feel a bit stupid, and you've got to be able to handle that. But it's hard at the time.
What about on the other side of the coin when you're fucking airborne? Do you sometimes get a bit of an anxiety about that? Is that ever,
Well,
is
you
that,
just
can that
can't
happen?
remember how you were fucking so useless before. It's like
It's a weird feeling, yeah.
It is. It's not like I've had times when for my own level, which is very small, been like airborne, and it's like fuck. Like
I try not to think I am. I
Yeah.
always think I'm losing.
Yeah.
I've always got that mentality where I'm against it. I've got to win today. I never think I'm going well.
Did you ever, like in some of your biggest run, Glens, when you put together significant money, did you ever have a bit of anxiety about that feeling, or was it always just...
No, it's just you're seeing them well. Just put your pads on, go out and try and do 6s and 4 again. That's how I thought. The only time gambling's ever affected me and I've been like scared or emotional is when I'm betting small.
Yeah.
Betting small scares the shit out of me. Like our period I'm going through, it's just terrifying. Betting big is easy because A, you're going well, B, you got a good bank, and you just want to put it on. Having 8,000 on something, or having had 50,000 on something, like that doesn't scare me at all. Having a monkey on it terrifies me, and I think that's because it becomes real money. And you're trying to get through the month, and like bills are fucking cheap when you're winning. I promise you. Yeah. And when you're losing, bills are expensive. Oh. It's just terrifying. I think the best piece of advice I can give anyone that wants to get involved in punting is that. Now, I don't want to get into Bag and Volandis because a lot of punters, we think differently about Peter because of he's pushing taxation rates and he's trying to build prize money, and the breeders don't seem to have to weigh into our game. It's just the punter who gets hammered. But I did hear him in an interview just recently walking to the airport when he was trying to explain the gambling dollar, that it's entertainment, that, people spend a couple $100 a week on golf, which they do. So if you lose a couple $100 punting, this is entertainment. I think anyone out there that saw that interview or thinks that, that you're not going to win, that it's just entertainment, has got to throw that, don't get involved in our game. Come into our game because you want to win and that you want to turn over more than $200 a week because you're not going to lose $200 a week. If you turned over 1,000 a week, you probably, if you were biggest fucking wombat that ever walked the earth and you turned over 50,000 there, you really shouldn't lose more than 6 or 8. So that means you're losing 150 a week. But go away from that mindset of it's entertainment. It is it's a game on. Do some work, process everything, really concentrate on getting the right odds. Please don't think that there's no difference between 460 and 420. There's a massive difference. Yeah. And not trying to tell you to be professional, but be serious about your punting. And if you're not going to be serious about your punting, go to IKEA with the filthy misses and buy a new Malamite table. Yeah. It's a better way to live.
And then what about making that Malamite table up? That's even worse.
Outstanding. Another outstanding afternoon.
But there's a real acceptance of defeat now in the younger generation with punting, isn't there?
It's just
like
terrible.
We bet we can't win.
Yeah. Oh, what a beauty. Well, don't bet. Please
that
don't
was one
come
of the
into our
ideas
game.
around starting Wolfden was to try and educate in some form that you can win. There is a chance. We don't have to just accept
There's ways to win.
Absolutely. There's still a lot of ways to win.
A lot of ways to win. And, and if you do lose a couple of years in a row and you are no good at it, accept you're no good at it, and then buy a surfboard.
Yeah.
But please don't think that you're betting for entertainment. Punting is never entertainment, ever.
Just getting back to the good run, if you're having a airborne, be prepared for a loss after that. Don't think that that's going to last if you're winning 30, 40, 50% on turnover. Don't get ahead of yourself. You're only going to end up around that 5 to 10% if you're good. So you got to keep it realistic as well.
And I would, on that subject, like look at the biggest punters in the world, the Dr. Nicks, the Jelcos, and even like that Phoenix group. It's all about scale, isn't it? Like they have huge staffs, and they might win 50 million in a week, like have an incredible week, but then still, I'm sure the guys at the top would be like, great result, but we need to keep pushing forward because every week our expenses are 2 million or whatever they are because they've got so many staff. So it's all relative, isn't it? I don't think there's any successful punters out there who ever take it for granted. You always
don't spend too much too. If you win 30, 40, 50,000 or something, don't go and spend it all. You need your punting back there to continue on.
But the worst feeling you can get at that time, and it's an understandable feeling, is I think I remember I won 16.5 one day at Gosford, and I thought, wow, that's fantastic. And the next week at Gosford, I lost on the first race. I did 5 on the next race. I ended up losing 18,000, but it was all through the day. I was thinking it's okay because I'd won all this money the previous meeting.
It's not okay.
It's not okay at all.
It's not okay at all.
And that's a feeling that you must shut out and not enter into.
Yeah.
So why don't sort of to finish things off, why don't we move to what we're all doing now? And do you want to? Did you start the punter show, which then became racing?
Glenn and I had an interesting start with Dallas. Dallas put us together back in 2009, and he recognised. So
He was working for RaceNet at the time.
Yeah, I know, but he recognised that the stories from the track were never told.
Yeah, he
And
did.
I touched on that earlier when I said, well, the journalists have done their best, but they've never been within. So Dallas's idea was actually to get two guys that were within. And, we'd entered on an era where media had expanded, so you could basically tell your own stories.
Yes.
And so he came up with the idea of actually, tales from the track, the tales from real punters. And so he put
And when he spoke to me, I said, "No one's going to watch this, Dallas. No one is going to watch know what anyone's doing the track." He said, "I'm telling you, this will be fun. This will be good. You'll enjoy it." Anyway, sorry, Mark, I didn't mean to jump in.
Yeah, so Dallas was a broadcaster. He'd put together an ill-fated show on 2SM, and he was an impresario.
Yeah.
He's a talented man.
Yeah, no doubt. And
He's
he
hugely
had
talented.
some great ideas.
Yeah.
So he put us together,
Yeah.
and suddenly there was content available for people to watch that they'd never seen before.
Yeah.
And even today, they still like to watch this because it not only have you got Tales of Yore, but you've got that's informing our own commentary now. So we're still able to analyse this fascinating pursuit with that experience in mind. And so other players are coming in and they sort of learn. They sit at your feet. The best example I could give of the idea behind the Punters Show is that you get someone like Gord. Now, Gord, my brother-in-law, back in 2009 when we started, he was just tearing up he was driving a bloody truck. He was tearing up that money every Saturday, just tearing it up, putting it through tab machines. And he starts watching us, and he's got a bit of an ego. He thinks he's probably better than us.
He is better than us.
But he basically starts watching and starts thinking how to play the game. So he's encouraged to actually put his mind to it. And so some of the ideas that we floated on the Punters Show were novel ideas, weren't they? I mean, people hadn't heard this stuff because they hadn't been to the track, and they were no longer able to hear them because the track had died by that stage. So here we were basically talking about stuff that was interesting and engaging and useful. And there's someone like Gord just going, well, I'm going to apply myself now and I'm going to come up with some strategies based on the stuff that you guys are talking about, and I'm going to improve them because I'm better than you. And that's the idea. Basically, we're offering punters, we love this game and we want people to play this game. And so we're offering them a chance to get involved, to learn, and then to go off on their own or with other people as as part of the community to try this stuff out. It's really, really, really...
That's the thing. We want them to learn, not just to say, oh, we're tipping this, so we're backing it. We want you to work out why we're tipping it.
Yeah.
And then maybe you might you could take another position. Well, your guys are wrong. I mean, with the beauty of Betfair, you can become a bookie. You can be a bookie.
Yeah.
But just getting back to Dallas, who did start the Punter Show via racenet.com, and then we morphed into Punter Show by ourselves, and then we've had a falling out with Dallas, and now we're Racing Rant, a different name. Dallas came to me, and I'm like a hard racecourse bloke. I've been out there at that time maybe 35 years, and here's this whippersnapper journalist going, oh, I've got an idea, and he's like a real car salesman look. I'm going, oh, yeah, what's your name, Dallas? Like, fucking, I don't want to talk to you. I'm betting, like, blah, blah. He goes, and I'll never forget, I said, have you got, because he had some problem financially with the 2SM deal, and it put him behind the cue ball in life, which can happen to anyone. I said, Dallas, have you got one thing you can say to me that would make me interested in being in business with you? He went, I'm a bankrupt. And I went, I'm fucking in. And that's how I started my association. That was the only thing he could say to me. And I thought, it was so honest, it was so real.
Because the Punter Show broke all the rules, didn't it really? It was just like a couple of blokes.
In a park.
Very low production cost.
Very low.
Say what you think. And it was fucking entertaining.
We had a cameraman the first week, remember?
Yeah, we did.
And we thought, Dallas has kitted up, RaceNet's kitted him up.
Yeah.
And that was the only day we had a cameraman.
One off.
Dallas is the only businessman I've ever met that had an $800 microphone that we hired for $280 a week for 4 years.
It's just...
But he's, people think I would be really dirty with Dallas, but I got a lot of love there for Dallas. I think he's good-hearted guy.
Well, he started the ball rolling, and
Started the
really,
ball rolling.
really,
We're lost to him now, but I miss having a drink with him. I miss him telling me funny stories, and it's just we've
Also,
morphed into something different.
Also, he was perfect to handle Glenn the rock star.
Yeah.
So because people, they hadn't been introduced to him.
Yeah.
And so Dallas was the impresario that basically put him on the stage.
Yeah.
You couldn't necessarily get enough Glenn if you were out there because there's all these other competing egos. Whereas Dallas is like, I know what I'm doing here. I'm putting this guy up front.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
there
Maybe
he is.
that's why I like him so much. But he's a good-hearted guy. I miss him, but anyway, that's life.
You're friendly with a lot of people who are sort of my age or younger.
Which suits me because, I like hanging around younger people because I hate the thought that I'm turning 61.
Wow.
Yeah. And I presume that if you weren't, the racing round has been a good way for you to continue to meet these new people.
Yeah, I have met a lot of, and some of them being dear friends. One of the boys that works here, Matt Taylor, I look at Matt as in my top 10 friends. He's a real good guy, and he's got a mate called Jeremy, another good friend of mine, and of course Luke Dooner, that gang, and the Bedfecker, and they're all in their 30s and all in the game, got skin in the game, and want to play and want to get bigger. Hard not to like.
Yeah.
Hard not to
so
like.
you've adopted the next generation.
I
really,
kind of have no friends my age.
Yeah.
They're all younger. All younger. Got, a couple of old school friends. You ring them once a year when they say someone in the form died.
Yeah.
That's it's sad to even touch on real life in that way. And one of the things that the racetrack gave you was this. It was theatre writ large. You didn't feel like you were a part of reality. The money didn't make sense, right? So you just lost all respect for money because you were playing with money that that other people thought was just insane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so there's going to probably be some people watching this who don't know you guys and why. Well, I'll say, I think that you guys are very dedicated to making content, and obviously this is a piece of content. So if they're watching content, they probably will like your guys' content. You put together a lot of content. You put together very succinct, analysis shows and also preview shows, and you also have a bit of fun. I'm an avid Monday Part 2 watcher. It's always good fun. Do you want to accentuate anything I've said as to why they should come and visit you guys and become members? Really.
We're too used to in the racing industry just being fed stuff. So it's a hackneyed cliche, but if you teach a man to fish, he's got fish for life. If you feed him fish, he's got fish for a day. Yeah. I mean, that's how the racing media works. The racing media is just busy handing out fish and pretty smelly fish from a lot of the content that comes your way. We're into teaching people how to fish, people how to punt, and they're learning not because we're being didactic in that way. We're not just going, here, do this and do that and back that and back that. We're an ideas organisation, so a lot of the content is disseminating ideas, discussing ideas. What makes this horse run better than that horse? And so I'm always trying to dig around and provide that sort of content. And I've got two amazing talents that I'm working with. Like Glenn has got the best combination of amazingly engaging stories and fascinating way of doing form or looking at horses. And then you've got Gord coming in going, I'll show you how to do it. And I see my role as being able to sort of pick around the edges, try and provoke these guys into giving some of their IP away. But I mean, it's sharing their IP, which other people will then take away and go, yeah, I really like that idea. I can expand on that. I can look harder at that. I think that might be an interesting avenue to explore. So that Racing Rant is a community of punters, and we're all committed to basically making every other punter better. Yeah. How can we improve our punting? Because you need to improve all the time. Yeah. I mean, here's living testament to the fact that 25 years ago, you walk onto the racetrack. He's eating a cucumber
sandwich, and now he owns half a Randwick.
That's right. But it's because you've worked. You've never gone, oh, well, I know what to do now.
No,
you're trying to improve your game.
Never rested.
Kingsley.
Absolutely. I read all the time. I listen to your shows. I try and pick up any bit of information I can.
You're on the hunt.
You always got to be better.
On the hunt for ideas.
And also because the game keeps changing.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But, people can find us at Racing Rant. And the good thing about Racing Rant yeah, we have a sub fee, but you can come on for 2 weeks for free and get a good lick of the ice cream and say, look, I'm interested or I'm not. But, get on board and come and check us out.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, we actively support all the other communities that are trying to put out content that we think's worthwhile.
Yeah, we do actively support the other communities too,
because we're all passionate about this game, and when you are passionate about something, you want to share it with other people, and you want other people to join you in your passion.
Yeah. When I asked you to come on the show, you said to me, part of the conversation, you said, well, we're all in this together. So yeah, I'll be there and I'll come and do the show with you, which I like to hear.
Yeah. Well, so an example which sort of illustrates what I'm talking about is I'm mad about cricket, but I cannot find people to talk cricket about with. I'm on Twitter and I'm throwing out this cricket tweet and they're all going, fuck, you know nothing about cricket, fuck off, will you? Racing, I've got a spot.
Yes.
I've got some credibility and I can share my stuff and other people will share their stuff with me. It's fucking great.
Awesome. So just to finish, Glenn, I do notice on the Racing Rant that you are very up to date with sort of world affairs. You're very knowledgeable and well read because I feel like you watch a lot of TV, right? So I just want to quickly check. I presume you like betting more than you do like watching TV, right?
When I study the form, I have the TV on in the background.
Right, and you watch a lot of it. Now,
I can't do form unless I got another noise there.
Okay, I heard that you used to watch a current affair a lot,
Yeah.
but apparently you've barred it. So my question is a current affair barred?
It is now, yeah.
It's 100% barred. So
well, I took my whole life to get over the fact I wanted to get Tracy Grimshaw off TV because I just couldn't look at her any longer. She's doing my head, and they got this pretty little thing that now, whatever her name is, every time she does a story, she starts crying. So I've had to bar it.
So it's gone?
Because I'm gone. I can't stand. I thought I couldn't stand fat people like Tracy, but I can't stand criers worse. So I've had to bar the whole scene.
Because you're going to get severely tested. So I don't know if you saw, but there's a news story broke yesterday, and the headline was teacher charged with running a gambling syndicate with Year 12 students.
Oh, it's on this week, isn't it?
It's on tonight on a current affair.
I'll give it a look.
You're back? Are you watching it?
I'll be back for that.
Cool.
Finally, we got a decent teacher in New South Wales.
Running a gambling syndicate. Wow.
Great way to finish. Thank you very much, boys. Thank you for coming in. Thank you.
thanks,
25
boys.
years
Thanks,
of
boys.
friendship. And,
Yeah, a lot of friendship.
Let's keep having fun.
All right. Well, thanks for the
And
opportunity.
keep betting. And like I said to you, don't come into this game for entertainment. Come into it to try to win because that's what's important.
Hear, hear.
Great episode. Hope you enjoyed it at home. We'll see you soon.